Have you ever had a morning where um, just the mere thought of putting on a stiff waistband made you want to actually cry?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Or like a day where you completely bypassed all those carefully planned professional outfits in your closet and you just buried yourself in the absolute heaviest, thickest sweater you own.
Yeah, the one you've worn 3 days in a row.
Exactly. And, we usually think, oh, I'm just being fussy today. Or I'm giving up on my style. I just want to be comfortable.
But it's not that at all.
No, it's really not. That is actually your nervous system begging for a biological intervention.
Begging for it.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at some incredibly profound insights on somatic healing today, specifically focusing on an approach from the mindful closet called dress to heal.
It's such a fascinating concept.
It really is. We are fundamentally changing how you, the listener, view the act of getting dressed in the morning. We're looking way past the aesthetics, past the colors and the seasonal trends, to explore how your clothes actually act as this constant real-time feedback loop to your biology.
Which is something that is just entirely overlooked in our culture. I mean, we constantly monitor what we put into our bodies, right?
Oh, yeah, tracking macros, taking a million supplements.
Right. We measure our exact caffeine intake to manage our stress levels. But we almost never critically examine what we put onto our bodies.
Which is wild when you think about it.
It is, because the skin is your largest organ. It is embedded with literally millions of sensory receptors, and it's in a state of unbroken, very loud communication with your brain at all times.
Like a massive sensory antenna.
Exactly. So what you wear, it isn't just fabric, it's sensory input. It is literally speaking to your autonomic nervous system from the second you wake up until the moment you go to sleep.
See, I think we naturally view clothing as just a visual statement, like it's the packaging.
Right, the billboard.
Yeah. We stand in front of the mirror in our 30s or our 40s. We're juggling, intense careers, complex relationships, aging parents, maybe trying to heal our own internal stuff. And we just ask, how do I look for this meeting?
Is this outfit chic?
Exactly. We treat clothes like a billboard advertising who we are to the outside world. But if I'm understanding the underlying mechanics of this source material correctly, that's entirely backward.
How so?
Well, we should really be looking at clothes more like the gears in a car's transmission.
Oh, I like that. Say more about that.
So I used to think of clothes as almost like a deep-sea diver suit, like they were protecting me from the outside world. But that's still just about external pressure.
Right, it's defensive.
Exactly. But if my nervous system is the engine of a car, the clothing is the transmission. Sometimes the engine is absolutely revving. Like I'm anxious, I'm running late, my heart is just pounding.
You're redlining.
Yes, I'm redlining. So I need to put the car in park so it doesn't just roll away and crash. But then other times, the engine is totally flooded and stalling out. I'm exhausted, I'm numb, I'm completely burnt out. And in that state, I need to shift into neutral so the engine can just idle without burning out completely. The clothes are the literal physical mechanism I use to shift those gears.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. I mean, it really highlights the mechanical, physical nature of the intervention.
Because it is physical, not just mental.
Exactly. We live in a society that loves to over-intellectualize everything. When you're feeling overwhelmed, the default advice is always, well, just think your way out of it.
Right. Rationalize the anxiety.
Yeah. Or we journal for an hour trying to decode our childhood trauma. Or we repeat positive affirmations in the mirror. And, cognitive tools are wonderful.
Sure, they have their place.
They do. But there are moments when words are simply useless to a fried nervous system. When that engine is redlining, you can't just talk nicely to it. You have to physically intervene.
Because the brain is essentially locking us out of the logical control room at that point, right?
That's exactly what's happening. When you are under intense emotional pressure, your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical reasoning part of your brain, it literally goes offline.
It just shuts down.
It does. And the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, takes the wheel. And the thing is, the amygdala doesn't process language effectively in that state.
So the affirmations are literally falling on deaf ears.
Exactly. But it does process physical sensation. The literal textures, the weights, the shapes of what we put directly onto our skin can entirely bypass that spiraling, anxious, cognitive loop.
Wow.
It provides tactile data that the deeper subconscious parts of the brain understand instantly.
Okay, so let's get into the actual application of this, because I want to challenge this idea right out of the gate.
Okay, let's do it.
The first framework we're looking at from the source is designed for high anxiety. Those days where you are highly activated, maybe you're freshly heartbroken, or you're staring down this terrifying deadline at work.
Do you feel like you're vibrating?
Yes, or physically shattering into a million pieces. The prescribed intervention here is called weighted comfort.
The armor for the activated.
Right. So we're talking heavy, oversized knit cardigans, stiff, structured denim jackets, thick wool scarves wrapped tightly around your neck.
Heavy fabrics, yes.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. If I am having a near panic attack, right? My chest is tight, my heart is racing. The absolute last thing I want is to feel trapped.
Which makes total sense.
Putting on a heavy, rigid denim jacket or tightly wrapping a wool scarf around my neck sounds like an actual nightmare. Wouldn't that just make me feel claustrophobic and make the panic way worse?
That is the most common misconception. And it's a crucial distinction we have to make here. There is a massive neurobiological difference between restriction and containment.
Restriction versus containment. Okay, break that down for me.
So restriction is when a garment cuts into you. It inhibits your breathing or limits your range of motion. Think of a tight waistband digging into your stomach or a stiff collar literally choking you.
Yes. The worst.
That absolutely triggers claustrophobia and escalates panic because it sends a very clear signal to the brain. I am trapped and I cannot escape.
Right, it's a threat.
But containment, on the other hand, is about deep pressure stimulation.
Okay, deep pressure stimulation. Let's break that down like I'm 5, because I hear that term thrown around with like weighted blankets all the time. But what is actually happening under the skin?
Beneath the surface of your skin, you have different types of mechanoreceptors. You have receptors for light touch, which, alert you to a mosquito landing on your arm.
Sure.
But deeper down, you have receptors specifically designed to sense heavy, sustained pressure. When you put on a heavy, dense knit cardigan or a structured blazer that just sits heavily on your frame, you're activating those specific deep pressure receptors.
And what do those receptors do once they're activated? Like, where does that signal go?
They send this massive fast-track signal straight up your spinal cord and directly into the brain. And when the brain receives this specific type of deep, sustained proprioceptive input, it triggers a literal cascade of neurochemical changes.
Just from a sweater.
Just from the weight. Actually decreases the production of cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone.
Wow.
And simultaneously, it increases the production of serotonin and dopamine, those neurotransmitters associated with calm and regulation and feeling safe.
That's incredible.
It is. This deep pressure literally sends an inhibitory signal to the amygdala, telling it to stand down. It forces your autonomic nervous system to shift from that sympathetic fight-or-flight state into the parasympathetic rest-and-digest state.
So it's literally a chemical hack.
It really is.
You're using a heavy garment to force your brain to manufacture calming chemicals.
Yes. Because think about it, when you're highly anxious, you lose your sense of physical boundaries.
Oh, totally. People always say they feel like they're floating away or dissociating during a panic attack.
Right. And the physical weight of a heavy garment provides a sensory anchor. It tells your brain, mathematically and physically, this is where your body ends. You are contained. You are anchored to the earth.
It's holding you together.
Exactly. It's doing the heavy lifting of holding your physical boundary together so your exhausted mind doesn't have to do it.
Man, that reframes those thick wool scarves completely. But there's a very specific styling rule that goes with this weighted comfort framework in the source material. And the evolutionary biology behind it is just fascinating.
The top-heavy rule.
Yes. The rule is keep the weight strictly on top. Shoulders, neck, chest.
That is the crucial part.
Yeah.
And to understand why, we have to look at human anatomy through the lens of evolutionary threat responses.
Okay.
What happens when an animal or a human is truly frightened?
We curl up into a ball. We hunch our shoulders way up to our ears.
Exactly. We hunch forward. We bring our shoulders up. We tuck our chins. We are instinctively protecting our vital organs, the heart, the lungs, and those highly vulnerable arteries in the neck.
Oh, wow. I never thought about the neck like that.
Right. So when you are chronically anxious, you are likely holding immense muscular tension in those exact areas without even realizing it.
Just bracing for impact all day.
Yes. So by placing weighted, comforting garments directly over the shoulders and chest, you're providing sensory reassurance right at the exact site of the biological alarm.
So a heavy scarf wrapped around the neck.
It sends a tactile message to the amygdala saying the vulnerable area is shielded. You can lower your defenses now.
That makes so much sense. So you keep the heavy knit, the structured blazer, the weighted vest on the top half, but the second half of that rule is that you must keep the bottom half soft. Leggings, relaxed denim, something with give.
Crucial.
Why is the lower half so important if all the anxiety is being held up in the chest?
Because of your diaphragm. If you're anxious, your breathing is already incredibly shallow, your chest breathing.
Panting, almost.
Right. And to trigger that parasympathetic calming response we talked about, you desperately need to initiate deep diaphragmatic breathing, belly breathing.
Okay.
Now, if you are wearing stiff, restrictive pants that dig into your abdomen every time you sit down, you physically cannot expand your diaphragm.
Oh, because the waistband is blocking it.
Exactly. Your body attempts to take a deep breath. It hits that rigid barrier of a tight waistband, and the brain registers that as a failure to get enough oxygen.
Which immediately spikes cortisol.
Which goes right back to your claustrophobia fear from earlier. That is the restriction.
Okay, it's all clicking now.
You want the upper body to feel held and shielded, but the lower body must be free to expand, to allow for mobility and respiration. It's this highly calibrated sensory formula: containment up top, physical freedom on the bottom.
I want you, the listener, to really think about your own habits right now. Think about your closet. Do you have a safety shield in there?
Everyone usually has one.
Right. Maybe it's this specific battered, oversized hoodie or a heavy wool blazer that you just instinctively grab on days you know are going to be absolutely brutal.
You probably thought you were just dressing for comfort.
Or maybe you even judged yourself, like, ugh, I'm wearing the same bulky sweater for the third day in a row, I'm such a mess. But you weren't giving up. You were actively prescribing yourself a somatic intervention.
You were medicating your nervous system with fabric.
Which is just so cool.
And realizing that is really where the empowerment lies. You aren't at the mercy of your anxiety. You actually have a tool.
Okay, but what happens when the panic has burned out?
The crash.
Yeah, the crash.
Yeah.
Let's say you just survived an agonizing 2-week project at work, or you've been navigating a really prolonged family crisis and the immediate threat is finally gone. You don't feel panicky anymore, you just feel completely empty.
Numb.
Yeah, numb, tight, and totally shut down. Now, if I put a heavy, rigid denim jacket on when I'm in that state, I feel like it would absolutely crush me. Weighted comfort would be the exact wrong tool then, wouldn't it?
It would be disastrous.
Really? Disastrous.
Yes, and this requires us to really understand the life cycle of the human stress response. Anxiety and panic, those are high-energy states. That is sympathetic activation.
The engine is revving.
Exactly. But the body cannot sustain that high-frequency vibration indefinitely. It takes a massive amount of metabolic energy to stay panicked.
It's exhausting.
It is. So eventually, if the stress continues for too long, or once the immediate crisis finally passes, the nervous system essentially trips the breaker to save the entire system from burning out completely.
It just pulls the plug.
It drops into what we call the dorsal vagal state.
The dorsal vagal state. Okay, let's dig into that because I want to understand exactly what is happening in the body when we hit that absolute wall of numbness.
Okay, so the vagus nerve is like the superhighway of your autonomic nervous system. It runs all the way from your brainstem down through your chest and into your abdomen.
It touches everything.
Right. And the dorsal branch of this nerve governs our most primitive survival response: immobilization.
Immobilization, like a possum playing dead.
That is the exact biological mechanism.
Yeah.
When your nervous system determines that you can either fight off a threat or run away from it, or when it's simply too exhausted to keep trying, it initiates a shutdown protocol.
Wow. So that feeling of being totally numb, where you can barely get off the couch and your body just feels sort of rigid and heavy, that's not just regular fatigue. That's a literal evolutionary survival mechanism.
Yes. Your heart rate actually drops. Your pain threshold increases. You become disconnected, frozen, and physically restricted. You're holding all this residual tension, but without the chaotic energy of the anxiety phase.
You're just locked up.
Exactly. So if you put heavy structured clothing on a body that is already in a state of dorsal vagal shutdown, you are actively reinforcing the immobilization.
Oh.
The heavy jacket tells the body, yes, stay frozen, stay hidden. It literally traps you in that state.
Which means we have to completely shift gears here. We need the exact opposite of containment.
We need flowy safety.
Flowy Safety. This is the second major framework from the deep dive source. And this is for the days when you need pure freedom. No tight waistbands. No stiff collars. It's about reminding the body that the threat is gone and it's safe to expand again.
Because when you're in that frozen, shutdown state,
Mm-hmm.
you are chronically contracting your muscles. You're unconsciously making yourself small.
Tucking in.
Right. So wearing flowy, unrestricted fabrics, we're talking silk, high-quality cotton, modal, wide-leg linen pants, sweeping skirts, it provides a completely different kinesthetic feedback loop.
Kinesthetic feedback, meaning how the fabric actually moves against the skin.
Exactly. Think about when you wear a lightweight, airy shawl.
Mm-hmm.
When you take a step, the fabric catches the air, and it sweeps gently across the skin's mechanoreceptors.
It flutters.
It creates a dynamic, moving sensation, and this sends a signal to the brain that highlights the space around the body. It whispers to the nervous system, look at all this room you have. You don't need to hide anymore. You can let your breath expand into this space.
It's giving the subconscious permission to literally take up space again. Yes.
When I picture wearing a flowy linen pant or a loose silk blouse, I can actually feel my jaw unclenching, just thinking about it. It's a tactile reminder that I don't have to brace for impact.
Contrast that with a tight synthetic restrictive garment. A tight garment constantly pings the nervous system with physical limits.
Every time you bend your arm or sit down.
Exactly. Every time you move, the fabric resists you, reminding the brain of confinement. Flowy Safety removes those physical limits. It gently encourages the frozen, shut-down body to thaw out and begin moving fluidly again.
But here's where real life completely collides with somatic theory. And we have to talk about this because it is the elephant in the room.
Oh, the dress code reality.
Yes. Doing a morning check-in and realizing, oh, I need Flowy Safety today sounds amazing, but what if I have a massive presentation at 10 a.m. and I have to drop 2 screaming kids off at school before that?
You can't just wear a silk robe.
No! I can't roll into a corporate office draped in flowing silk and linen layers. I will look like I'm wearing pajamas or like I'm heading to a week-long meditation retreat.
And if I feel sloppy, or if I feel like my colleagues are judging my professionalism, that is just going to introduce a brand new type of social anxiety, which completely defeats the purpose of the healing garment in the first place.
That is the eternal tension here. We have to bridge our internal somatic needs with our external social realities.
We still live in a society.
We do. And a somatic intervention only works if it actually makes you feel safer in your given environment. If your clothing makes you feel socially vulnerable, your amygdala is going to light up, regardless of how soft the fabric is.
Exactly. So how do we honor the need for flowy safety without looking like we've completely given up on life?
There's a formula for it.
Yes, there is a very specific styling formula from the source for this, and it is absolute genius. It's the combination of a sleek base layer with a dramatic flowy overlayer.
Let's break down the mechanics of why that works so well neurologically.
Okay, so you start with something fitted but comfortable, like a high-quality, opaque cotton tank top, a really well-cut bodysuit, or a simple, streamlined mock neck, something that sits close to the skin.
Right. Then you layer something big, flowy, and dramatic right over it. A long, open front silk kimono, a lightweight duster cardigan that falls to the knees, or even just a really oversized, unbuttoned poplin shirt.
It is a masterclass in providing dual sensory input.
Right. Because visually, to the outside world, you look incredibly chic and put together. That fitted base layer gives you a clean, tailored silhouette. You look intentional.
You look like a professional who knows exactly what they're doing.
Yes. But internally, your sensory experience is entirely different. Because the outer layer is an open front duster or a kimono, you aren't restricted by the stiff armholes of a tailored blazer. As you walk down the office hallway, that fabric is moving around you, catching the air.
And neurobiologically, that combination is deeply reassuring to a recovering nervous system.
Because of the contrast.
Yes. The soft, fitted base layer provides a very subtle, continuous tactile boundary. It's not restrictive, but it lets the nervous system know exactly where the physical body ends. It provides a baseline of security.
So you don't feel like you're just floating out in the open. Exactly. Meanwhile, the expansive moving outer layer provides the freedom. The brain registers the security of the base layer and the freedom of the outer layer simultaneously. This allows you to function at a high cognitive level in your meeting without re-triggering the dorsal vagal shutdown.
Okay, so we have the gears. We have weighted comfort for when the engine is revving and we need containment. We have flowy safety for when the engine is stalled and we need to thaw it out.
The toolkit is there.
But knowledge without a system is just trivia, right? How do we actually do this? Because if this becomes a complex 20-minute daily routine of agonizing over fabrics in the mirror, No one is going to do it.
No, they'll abandon it by Tuesday.
It will just become another chore on an endless to-do list.
It has to be frictionless. If a healing practice causes stress to implement, it is inherently counterproductive. The protocol the source outlines here is a 3-step daily clothing ritual that takes perhaps 2 minutes total scattered throughout the day.
Step 1 is the morning check-in. Before you open your closet, before you look at your phone, you just stand in front of the mirror. You put your bare hand on your bare chest. You take one deep breath. And you ask yourself one functional question. Do I need to feel held today? Or do I need space to breathe?
I want to focus on the physical mechanics of that first step, because putting your hand on your chest is not just some symbolic woo-woo gesture.
It's not just for aesthetics.
Not at all.
All right.
It is a highly effective interoceptive technique.
Interoceptive.
Yes, interoception is your brain's ability to perceive the internal state of your body.
Oh, like noticing your heart beating.
Exactly. Most of us operate in a chronic state of exteroception. We are constantly monitoring the external world. We're looking for threats. We're reading emails, checking the news, watching traffic.
Living outside of our bodies.
Right. By placing the physical warmth and weight of your own hand over your heart center, you are forcing your brain's attention inward. You are literally drawing cognitive resources away from the spinning thoughts in your prefrontal cortex and directing them down to the physical sensations of your chest.
Just by the touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And taking a deep breath forces the diaphragm to engage. In that 5-second window, you get an immediate, incredibly accurate read on your vagal tone. You will instantly know if your chest feels tight and panicked, or if it feels hollow and exhausted.
And then asking that question, held, or space to breathe, it forces you to actually dress for the body you have in that exact moment.
Which is incredibly profound.
I think this is the most confrontational part of the whole system, honestly. We are so conditioned to dress for an idealized version of ourselves.
Oh, definitely.
You lay out this sharp, restrictive power outfit the night before because you hope you're going to be this invulnerable, highly productive machine the next day.
The fantasy side.
Yeah. But then you wake up, you slept terribly, your kid is sick, you have a huge knot of anxiety in your stomach.
And what happens when you force that anxious, exhausted body into that stiff, aspirational outfit?
It feels like an act of self-betrayal.
Because it is. It is an act of somatic betrayal. You are telling your nervous system, I hear the alarm bells you are ringing, I feel your distress, and I am choosing to completely ignore it. Your current state is unacceptable. Ouch. That cognitive dissonance alone will spike your cortisol before you even leave the bedroom. But by pausing, doing the hand-on-chest check-in, and deciding, actually, I need the heavy knit today, you are practicing radical self-acceptance.
You are validating your own state of being.
Exactly.
Okay, so you do the check-in, you choose your gear-weighted comfort or flowy safety, and you go to work. But life happens. The energy you have at 7 a.m. is almost never the energy you have at 2 p.m.
Almost never.
Which brings us to the most practical intervention. Step 2, the midday reset.
The infamous 2 p.m. wall.
The 2 p.m. wall is undefeated. This is when your stress peaks. The morning coffee has completely worn off. Your inbox is a disaster zone. You've been putting out fires all day, and you can just feel your jaw clenching.
You're spiraling.
You can feel yourself starting to spiral. The advice from the source here is brilliant. Keep a heavy knit cardigan or a thick, dense wool shawl permanently draped over the back of your office chair or in the back seat of your car.
The 2 p.m. wall is a physiological reality. It's driven by a perfect storm of biology.
What's happening at 2 p.m.?
Well, you have a natural dip in your circadian rhythm.
Yep.
You also have a massive buildup of adenosine in the brain, which is the chemical that causes sleepiness and mental fatigue.
Right.
And you have the accumulated cognitive load of making hundreds of micro decisions all morning. In response to that fatigue and the lingering demands of the workday, the sympathetic nervous system often revs right back up.
As a panic response.
Yes. Your brain perceives the intense fatigue and the unfinished tasks as a survival threat.
So when you hit that wall, you don't go to the bathroom and try to meditate for 20 minutes because, frankly, no one has time for that. You reach for that heavy garment.
Yes.
You don't have to change your outfit. You just drape that thick, heavy knit over your shoulders for 10 minutes. You let the weight sit on your trapezoids while you just answer emails.
This is what we call an energetic circuit breaker.
I love that phrase, circuit breaker.
Let's look at the biology of a stress spiral. When you're sitting at your desk, overwhelmed, a feedback loop is gaining momentum. The brain perceives the threat. Let's say it's an angry email from your boss.
Okay.
It signals the body to release adrenaline. The body tenses its muscles. specifically the shoulders and neck.
Bracing for the attack.
Exactly. Then the brain monitors the body, feels those tense shoulders, and concludes the physical tension confirms the threat is real and imminent, so it releases more cortisol. The loop speeds up.
And how does the sweater break the loop?
By introducing conflicting physical data.
Conflicting data?
Yes. When you drape that heavy weight over your shoulders, those deep pressure mechanoreceptors we talked about earlier, they light up. They send a massive inhibitory signal to the brain, essentially shouting, wait, we are contained, we are safe. Downregulate the system.
And the brain listens.
It has to. The brain is forced to process this physical sensation of safety, which abruptly interrupts the feedback loop of tension. Cortisol has a half-life. If you interrupt its production even briefly, you drastically reduce its overall accumulation in your system.
You are manually overriding your own stress cycle under fluorescent office lights.
Yes.
You don't need a yoga mat. You just need a heavy piece of wool. That is incredibly empowering.
It completely demystifies healing. It proves that energetic regulation isn't something that only happens in a therapist's office. It happens right at your desk.
So you survive the afternoon, you commute home, you walk through the front door. This is step 3, the evening release.
Crucial step.
And there is a hard rule here. The moment you cross the threshold of your home, you change your clothes. You do not sit on the couch in the trousers you wore to the tense marketing meeting. You do not cook dinner in the stiff bra you've been wearing since 7 a.m. You immediately strip off the armor and slip into something soft, unrestricted, and flowy.
The importance of this transition cannot be overstated because skin has context-dependent memory.
Wait, what does that mean? Skin has memory?
Yes. The brain strongly associates physical sensations with the specific environments in which they occurred.
Okay.
So if you were wearing a specific stiff collar or a restrictive waistband during a highly stressful, conflict-heavy meeting at 11 a.m., your nervous system essentially associates the tactile sensation of that garment with the state of threat.
Oh, wow. Like a trigger.
Exactly. If you come home to your supposed safe haven at 6 p.m., but you remain in that exact same restrictive garment, the garment continues to ping the nervous system with the tactile signature of the threat.
So you're home, but your body doesn't know it.
Right. Your environment changed, but your sensory input didn't. Therefore, the brain cannot fully transition out of defense mode.
That is mind-blowing. By keeping the work clothes on, you are literally keeping the somatic memory of the stress alive on your skin.
Yes.
So changing immediately into soft, flowy fabrics physically signals to the brain. The work is done. You have crossed the moat. You are in the sanctuary. You can let go. The phrase used in the source to describe this is a boundary you can wear.
It is the physical manifestation of a psychological boundary.
Yeah.
So many people struggle to leave work at work, right? Their minds race with to-do lists while they're trying to just relax and watch a movie with their families.
Everyone does that.
By shedding the day's clothing, you're performing a biological ritual. You are shedding the day's energetic residue. You're giving your nervous system the definitive, tactile, all-clear signal, which is absolutely required to fully enter the restorative, rest and digest state for the evening.
Okay, let's quickly synthesize this so the listener can take action tomorrow.
Good idea.
If you wake up and your engine is revving, you are anxious, overwhelmed, activated, feeling fragile, you lean into weighted comfort. You use heavy knits, structured denim, tactile containment to trigger that parasympathetic calm.
Right.
If you wake up and your engine is stalled, you feel tired, numb, shut down, rigid from old stress, you lean into flowy safety. You use silks, linens, and unrestricted fabrics to give the nervous system permission to expand and breathe.
Exactly.
And if you wake up feeling pretty steady, balanced, and ready to go, you mix them both. You use that sleek, fitted base layer to feel secure and the flowy duster to feel free.
It is a brilliantly adaptable toolkit. It removes the rigid adherence to fashion rules and replaces it with fluent, real-time communication with your own nervous system.
So what does this all mean for us? Getting dressed isn't a chore. It isn't a superficial exercise in vanity. Every single morning, when you open the doors to your closet, you are looking at an emotional control center. You have a daily opportunity to physically tell your body, you're safe, I've got you.
It shifts getting dressed from just a mindless habit into a profound act of self-compassion.
It really does. But as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a completely different angle to chew on.
Oh, this is a good one.
Something that wasn't explicitly covered in the frameworks we just discussed, but naturally builds on everything we've just learned. We spent this entire time dissecting the clothes we choose to wear and how they actively signal our nervous system. But what about the clothes we don't wear?
The one's just sitting there.
Think about it. Go into your mind's eye right now and look at the clothes pushed all the way to the very back of your closet, the garments that have been gathering dust on hammers for years.
Everyone has them.
The pair of jeans from a job you absolutely hated, the dress you wore to an event where your heart was broken, the heavy, rigid suit from a time in your life when you felt like you constantly had to fight just to be heard.
Yeah.
You never wear them, but for some inexplicable reason, you just can't bring yourself to throw them away or donate them.
That is such a fascinating extrapolation of somatic memory.
Because if our clothes are a constant tactile signal to our nervous system, and if the skin holds context-dependent memory, like you said, could it be that those unworn clothes in the back of the closet are actually holding on to past nervous system states?
It's very possible.
Are they physical manifestations of old trauma, old stress, or just old versions of yourself that you haven't fully processed yet?
The graveyard of past nervous systems.
Wow, yes. Think about the energetic weight of opening your closet every morning to try and regulate your current nervous system while you are staring at a graveyard of your past nervous system's armor.
That's heavy.
If the act of getting dressed is an act of real-time energetic regulation, then maybe decluttering your closet isn't just about making space for new shoes. Maybe bagging up those unworn ghosts and physically removing them from your sanctuary is the ultimate act of releasing old emotional armor.
Decluttering is somatic release. I love that.
Tomorrow morning, when you open your closet, don't just look at the fabrics. Look at the energy you are choosing to keep in your space. Take one deep breath. Put your hand on your bare chest. Ask your body what it needs right now in this exact moment to feel safe. And dress that body.
Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating intersection of biology and daily life with us. We will catch you on the next deep dive.
Today, how dressing can regulate your nervous system. Oh, how regulate your nervous system. Oh, let's get into